I've been itching to get behind this mic for the past couple of days. It is Monday evening, and by the way, for the people who catch this channel live, I will be doing the evening podcast for about the next week and a half due to some construction that's going on in my house right behind this wall in my office. So during the day, so we will have evening podcast. Y'all make sure to hit that like button as y'all come in. Make sure to leave those comments as y'all come in, because this is a comment-oriented podcast. Team Batman Boxing in the building. Y'all make sure to leave those comments. And we had some things happen over the weekend. I mean, some fights disappointed a little bit. Some came through. Some were a little odd. And we're going to talk about all that and how we see this thing going forward for all these fighters after this past weekend. Had some developments. Y'all make sure to hit that like button. Like I said, Calix Boxing 2.0, Calix Boxing 2 over on Twitter. Make sure to check me out over there. That's where I'm at most of the time anyway. So if you want to access me easily, go over to Twitter. But let's talk about Mick Conlan first, because I got a lot of thoughts when it comes to Vergil Ortiz. And by the way, he barely cashed us out on that under. We talked about Vergil Ortiz under 8.5 rounds, and he cashed for us. Barely. And his corner almost messed that up for us. His corner almost messed it up. It's like, dude, he's taken enough punishment. He's taken enough punishment. Stop the fight. Stop the fight. It's pit bull versus bait dog. Like, it's a pit bull versus a poodle. 100% KO percentage versus 8% KO percentage. Your guy has shown well through 8 rounds. He's shown himself well to where, you know, you can at least bring him back over to the States again and get him in another fight. As sort of a gatekeeper guy, you don't need to damage him now. You don't need to damage him. He just took a hellacious body shot. There's no reason to send him back out there. Stop the fight. How many corners do we have to see do this? And it's usually when the trainer is related to the fighters. Like, dude, stop the fight. Virgil is very capable of destroying guys' careers. Look at Mo Hooker on Saturday night. And we'll talk about this. We will talk about Blair the Flair Cobbs versus Mo Hooker. If Mo Hooker had anything left in him, he beats Blair Cobbs. And Vegas told you that before the fight. Vegas told you Mo Hooker was a 2.5 to 1 favorite. The reason he was is they're going off of the past. They had no idea that Mo Hooker was completely washed. And the reason Mo Hooker is completely washed is because of what Vergil Ortiz did to him in the last fight. So if you're Michael McKinson's corner, you say, I don't want to damage my guy permanently against Vergil Ortiz by sending him back out there when he doesn't have an equalizer. He's got 2 knockouts and 22 victories. So if you have 2 knockouts and 22 victories, you have 1 knockout per 11 fights. And this is a huge step-up fight. Huge step-up fight. There's no reason to send your guy out there when he cannot knock Virgil out. Virgil has a granite chin. Virgil is a guy who is elite. He's an elite level fighter. Elite level fighter. And we'll be talking more about this later on in the podcast. But this stream of consciousness here. Like, why in the world, if you're Mike McKinson's trainer, would you send him out there in the 9th round when he doesn't have it in his arsenal to knock Vergil Ortiz out? What is there to gain at that point? What is that? Just stop the fight. Your fighter showed well for 8 rounds, well enough for people to respect him. He lasted longer than people thought. Stop the fight. Stop the fight. Look at what happened to Mo Hooker. Mo Hooker Saturday night was a shell of himself. The reason he's a shell of himself is he fought Vergil Ortiz last, and he was a damaged fighter. And this is what Vergil Ortiz does to guys. He damages them. He damages them. No need to do it. Mike McKinson fought a guy with 169 losses and 12 draws 4 years ago. I don't know if y'all saw that. And he didn't stop him. He didn't stop him. So what makes you think he's going to stop Vergil Ortiz in rounds 9 through 12? It wasn't going to happen. All right. So D-Style Boxing, appreciate that. And I will be on with D-Style Boxing later tonight on the Aftermath. And we'll be talking about a lot of this stuff on D-Style Boxing's channel, 8 p.m. Central. So that's about an hour and a half from now. I will be back on live with D-Style Boxing. My guy over on Twitter, Blair the Flair, Bavik, and I'm going to destroy your name, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, but this is my dude from over on Twitter. Blair the Flair has beaten more world champions than Demetrius Andre. What up, Calix Boxing? Salute to the channel. 2 Matador in the building. I had Virgil and Beck the Bully both by stoppage, did well. And Beck the Bully is a fun fighter, but here's the thing. 3 straight victories by stoppage after the Gabe Rosado fight. So it's good. We're getting Beck the Bully back on his feet, but here's the thing. We know that Beck the Bully is a bully. We know that Beck the Bully can punch. He's a savage puncher. We also know that Beck the Bully can savagely destroy this level of opposition. The questions with Beck the Bully are, how does he deal with counterpunchers, and how does he deal particularly with counterpunchers who can punch? Because Gabe Rosado is a counterpuncher, but Gabe Rosado is not a counterpuncher who can punch at 168, and he still knocked out Beck the Bully. So the questions that we need to answer for Beck the Bully is, was that a fluke? Was that a fluke stoppage with Gabe Rosado because he was dominating the fight up until that point, and then Gabe Rosado caught him with a perfect shot? Or does he have a poor chin? What happens when he deals with a guy who can deal with the punishment he's dishing out, but also is a great counterpuncher with lateral movement? These are the questions we need asked for Beck the Bully, and we're not getting those questions answered right now because this is the process in which they're trying to get Beck the Bully back on his feet. But now, going forward, we need to step him back up. And I'd love to see Gabe Rosado win next month, and then we get Gabe Rosado versus Beck the Bully too, and we start to get those questions answered. That'd be nice. Calix, my brother, Remy in the building, my guy Bruce Gass in the building. I believe he'll be on later too. Calix, happy start of the week. That's right, Monday. It's just another manic Monday. No, he is not. That's my dude. Y'all stop fighting in the chat. Y'all are all good people. Stop fighting in the chat. My guy, I see my guy, I'm calling it Blair Cobbs versus Vergil Ortiz next. And that's some questions we got. That's some of the stuff we got brewing right now too, is who is Virgil going to fight next? And that's a name that's popping up. Y'all make sure to hit that like button as y'all come in. And before I get more into the Virgil stuff, I want to talk about Mick Conlan, because Mick Conlan I love what happened over the weekend with Mick Conlan, because we talked about it last week. The last time we saw Mick Conlan fight, he was being carried out on a stretcher. He went through a savage 12-round fight of the year type fight. And with a minute and a half left in the fight, so this dude fought 34 and a half minutes, he gets carried out on the stretcher after being knocked out the ring. So you don't know what to expect of a guy when that happens. You don't know if he's going to be the Mick Conlan of old. You don't know if the Mick, like a Mo Hooker, is going to show up like he did against Blair the Flair. We'll get into that in a minute. And a shell of himself will show up in the fight. So it's a big ask to come back 6 months after that. And think about the boxing world we currently live in. An active fighter is seen as a guy who fights twice a year, right? That's an active fighter. Part-time fighters, really people are considering one-time-a-year fighters full-time fighters these days. You're lucky to see a guy return 9 to 12 months after a fight, even after a win. So this dude, Mick Conlan, gets knocked out the ring. 6 months later, he's back in there with a Colombian puncher, Mariaga. 26 knockout victories and 30 wins, Mariaga. So I understand why Mariaga was in there. I get it. And I know people are going to say it in the chat. 35 years old, and the age showed. The age showed in this fight. The reflexes weren't there. It's harder to sit on his punches. It's harder to track down a moving target if you're that up there in age. Also, every time he's stepped up, he's lost. I get it. The 5 times he stepped up, he's lost. I get it. He's trending down 2 out of His last 3 fights he lost, now 3 out of 4. I get all that. But what I'm saying is a lot of times after a loss like this, you don't see a guy till the next year. And then you see him in there with a guy who doesn't punch, who's not a puncher. What did Mick Conlan's team do? They went through the fire. They walked through the fire. They said, you got to look in yourself in the mirror. You got to exercise your demons. We got to get back in the ring. And I understand people are going to say this guy's washed up. I get it. I get it with Marriaga, but he can punch. He has an equalizer. He's a guy capable of landing a flush shot against a guy who is chinny, and the fight goes south. And that didn't happen with Conlan. What happened with Conlan on Saturday night? Conlan completely dictated the pace of the fight. He dictated the real estate. He dictated where the fight was fought, how it was fought, constant feinting, showing his athleticism in the ring. And Marriaga couldn't get to him. And Conlan won every single round on my card. I didn't like the knockdown calls. I thought they were all slips, but there was never a moment in the fight, never a moment where I felt that Conlan was in trouble with Marriaga. Not once. Like there was never a second in this fight where I said, oh, no, Conlan's in trouble here. And we expected that moment in this fight, right? We expected Marriaga to catch Conlan with something at some point in the fight. And you say, oh, wait, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? Can Conlan get through it? Because coming into the fight, what did we say? We took Conlan by knockout off the table because Marriaga's got a hell of a chin. And then we took Marriaga by decision off the table. We knew that Conlan was going to outbox Marriaga throughout the fight, but we felt that Marriaga was going to catch Conlan with something at some point in the fight, an equalizer. And you start to say, okay, can Conlan get through 10 rounds and win this fight on the cards? And that never happened. It's because Conlan showed his elite level boxing skill against Marriaga. And it gets Conlan back in the discussion quickly. Because like I said, we usually don't get these answers till a year later. Maybe a year and a half, because you're fighting a guy who doesn't punch. You're fighting a guy extremely flawed. Marriaga, although older and flawed, he can punch. And Conlan showed that he can deal with the puncher 6 months after getting knocked out the ring. So now, 6 months later, and this is why I love this move by Conlan's team. Now, 6 months later, we're talking about a rematch with Lee Wood. Lee Wood's talking about fighting Mauricio Lara in September, possibly. Conlan's team will say, hey, if you win that fight, why don't we do the rematch? Or just skip that fight and let's do the rematch. That's what the Conlan team is going to say. They want the rematch earlier than later. Early 2023. And they're right back in the mix for that because he went through the fire. He walked through the fire. He exercised those demons. And more fighters need to do this. More fighters need to do this. Get right back to it and get into it. Let's see. How the heck are we going to watch AJ Usyk? They haven't announced anything this fight in 2 weeks. I understand what you're saying. Like, I don't understand what's going on with the zone. They just announced that they're going up to $150 yearly subscription. And for me, as a fight fan who has supported the zone from the very beginning, the zone, and a lot of them, why not grandfather us into a rate? I've supported the zone from day one. Grandfather me into a rate, man. That's all I'm saying. Like, I've supported the zone. I've supported ESPN Plus from day one. They're about to go up from $70 to $100 a year. They're all going up on us. And it seems like we're getting less for what we're paying. Now we're getting more pay-per-views. I don't know. And I don't know what's going on. I'm hearing rumors AJ versus Usyk 2 is going to be pay-per-view over here in the States. I hope not. But we'll see. We will see. Virgil is going to fight Alexis Roca, Blair Cobbs, or Evan Nation. Evan Nation was supposed to be this fight, and he didn't want the fight with Virgil. So what I'm saying is get Virgil in there with a live body, but these guys have to step to the table to fight Virgil. More on that in a minute, because I got a lot to say about Vergil Ortiz right now. Love what's going on with Vergil Ortiz as a fighter. Love it, love it, love it. Mariaga looked like he was overthinking in there. I just think that it just came down to Conlan fighting a great fight. Conlan looked really good. He looked really good. Let's see. Virgil would beat Blair into humbleness. Yeah, so let's get into that real quick. When I saw that Mo Hooker came in 3 pounds overweight, and by the way, y'all make sure to hit that like button once again as y'all come in. I saw that he came in 3 pounds overweight on Friday. And my reaction to that generally is unprofessional. How could a guy do this? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like you ever watch, we call them popcorn movies coming up, pop movies. It's the movies that you ever watch a movie and it's not good. Like the movie is not good at all, but every time it comes on, you got to watch it. You got to watch. Everybody has those movies. Now you admit that is not a good movie. Like Drumline is not a good movie. Whatever it may be, any of the 80s popcorn movies. Teen Wolf, not a good movie. Like it's just not a good concept. Like who in the hell would believe that a dude turns into a wolf and all of a sudden averages 100 points a game in basketball? Like why would you even believe that? Like why would you even watch that? Why would you even watch that? Like the dude turns into a wolf in the middle of a game, gymnasium full of people, and there's like this dust up on the floor, and he's at the bottom of the dust up. He pops out with the basketball as a wolf. And then everybody just sits there in the gymnasium and keeps watching the game. And the dude scores 100 points. And you watch it. Every time Teen Wolf is on, I watch it. It's one of those. Like when I think of Blair Cobbs versus Mo Hooker, it's one of those bad movies, but you got to watch it. Blair Cobbs to me will never be an elite fighter, but for some reason, man, like I enjoy watching the dude ice skate across the boxing rink. And adding Mo Hooker to the mix, a guy who hadn't fought in a year and a half, coming off a bad injury, coming off of a tough loss to Vergil Ortiz, 3 pounds overweight, and he's the favorite. I got to watch this movie. Like, I know what I'm getting myself into. I know I'm getting myself, and I tweeted this Friday evening. I said, 3 pounds overweight. Blair Cobbs is still going to fight him. He's going to get $15,000 in extra penalty money from Mo Hooker and still fight him. I know it's a circus act, but I still got to watch it. I still got to watch it. Blair Cobbs versus Mo Hooker was must-see programming in the Calix household. It's one of those movies, man, the popcorn movie. Can't Buy Me Love, Teen Wolf, Teen Witch, Drumline, whatever it may be. It's the bad movie that you have to watch when it comes on TV. For some reason, your eyes are just drawn to it. And I'm watching Blair Cobbs in there just, like I said, skate all over the ring, can't find his footing, but somehow just destroying Mo Hooker, just destroying him. And he's a 2.5 underdog to 1 underdog against Mo Hooker. And Mo Hooker, obviously, and you saw it early on. You saw it in the first round when he's getting caught with shots, counter shots, and not reacting well to him. He's washed. He's washed. And this is what I say, and more on this in about 5 minutes when we start talking about Vergil Ortiz, is Vergil Ortiz damages people. I understand Mo Hooker has been in there with other guys. I understand he's had a rough and tumble career. He's done great. He's done some good things, but he's always, when he stepped up to the elite level, he's fallen short. He's not an elite level fighter, but he's a guy who offers resistance. And he's a guy who, if there was anything left of him, he beats Blair Cobbs. He's able to counter him. He's able to pick him apart. He's able to dictate the pace of the fight with his 7-inch reach advantage that he had against Blair Cobbs. He wasn't able to do any of that. His mind didn't look all there. When he's countering Blair Cobbs counters right back on him. And in the trades, Blair Cobbs is landing the bigger and flusher shots. Blair Cobbs gets hurt really bad with the headbutts, and it still didn't do enough for Mo Hooker to even out the fight. Blair Cobbs dominated him. I mean, just dominated him. It was just odd to see Mo Hooker with nothing left. He looked flat-footed. He looked baffled, especially early on in the fight. He just looked washed. He looked like he had nothing left of himself to give. And I just keep going back to this. When he was able to counter Blair Cobbs countered him right back. And Mo Hooker, I was actually surprised to see Mo Hooker last the full 10 rounds after seeing that first 3 rounds, because I thought for sure Blair Cobbs was going to get Mo Hooker out of there. But once again, like if you watch Blair Cobbs fight, I understand, I appreciate the self-promotion. I appreciate the fact that he can promote himself into bigger fights than he likely deserves. I appreciate the WWE aspect of what he brings to boxing. And I understand, like, I appreciate the fact that he's severely flawed as a fighter, because it makes for fun fights, right? And we saw it again on Saturday night. It felt short of what I thought I was going to get as far as entertainment value, and that's due to Mo Hooker just not having anything left and not making it a more competitive fight. Then it's not making it the competitive fight that it should have been. There just wasn't that much two-way action because Blair Cobbs, for the most part, 80% of the fight, he dominated. He dominated. And he wasn't doing anything special. That was the weird part. That was the weird part. He was still Blair Cobbs. That's still the Blair Cobbs that fought the last fight, the fight before that, the fight before that. I didn't see these great improvements that people were saying Blair Cobbs was going to make and saying he made after the fight. I didn't see it. I saw the same old Blair Cobbs, and guess what? Once again, I'm fine with it. He's the popcorn movie. Next time Blair Cobbs fights, guess who's going to show up? Guess who's going to watch it? Me. I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to be unapologetic in it because I enjoy seeing the severely flawed dude who can promote himself and will likely get knocked out when he steps up. But on the way up to that level, he's going to be in some fun fights. He'll be in some fun fights. So that's all I got with that. Equals meh. Yeah, a lot of people feel like that about Conlan, and I don't know if Conlan's a top 8 to 10 126 pounder or ever will be, but he's going to have his opportunities because he's Mick Conlan. And I wouldn't doubt it if he breaks through with a victory against the top 10 guy at 126. I wouldn't doubt it. 126 is full of good fighters in the division. It's a deep division of good fighters, but I don't know if it has that great fighter. It may. Somebody might materialize into a great fighter. Navarrete may be there or close to it. Figueroa is close to it. Lee Wood, we'll see. So you have guys there. But we'll see. D-Nice, appreciate the support, man. Appreciate you coming through. Y'all make sure to hit that like button. One that actually works. All right, I don't know what that is. Let's see what we got. 90% of Marvel movies are garbage. Teen Wolf was the GOAT of basketball. Yes, he is the GOAT of fictional basketball. You're right about that. The real life Cat in the Hat movie. Everybody's throwing out their movies out there that are bad, but we still got to watch them. Cobbs looked decent early, took the last few rounds off, though, when he should have kept the big shots landing on Hooker, who's definitely washed. And that's the thing. Like, if Cobbs was an elite level fighter, he would have gotten the washed up Mo Hooker out of there, right? But he didn't. So you have to question the finishing power. You also have to give Mo Hooker credit for being a warrior and for being Mo Hooker. That being said, he just looked like a shell of himself. I know one of his somebody in his inner circle passed away. So he had that going on. That may have been the reason he missed weight. I get all that, but he just looked, to me, it looked like Virgil took a lot out of him in that last fight. Hooker needs to go to PBC and fight the likes of Robert Guerrero, Victor Ortiz, Devin Alexander, Jose. So you say he needs to go fight the washed up guys over there at the PBC. I was more impressed by the kid Floyd Schofield. And I'm glad you put that, Chauncey. Floyd Schofield's a guy they've had on the ACP network. Shout out to D-Style, G-Funky. He's been on there several times. He's a prospect to look out for. Now 11-0 with 9 stoppages. Floyd Schofield is a guy to look out for. Kid Austin. If you don't know who he is, after this show, type in Floyd Schofield in your YouTube search engine, and you'll see some highlights of him. And he fought on the undercard, on the undercard on DAZN on Saturday night. And that kid's something to look out for. 21 years old, only two years in, just signed with Golden Boy. He's a guy you're going to be seeing a lot of on these DAZN undercards in the next year or two. Sort of like you see with Xander Zayas on the ESPN undercards. You're going to see a lot of that with Floyd Schofield. And he's a guy at lightweight 2 years from now, you might be seeing at that top level fighting to get into the top 10. He's good. He's good. He's got the goods. He's physical. He can punch, athleticism, and he has bad intentions. He wants to get guys out of there, and he's ambitious. And he has good character, good personality behind him. He's a marketable guy. So look out for Floyd Schofield. Mo Hooker looked really bad. I thought he looked terrible. He looked terrible. Cobbs was way more focused this fight. No annex and a new coach. Yeah, and there was a lot of that. People saying that he's not with Freddie Roach anymore, so he's getting more one-on-one training. I get all that. I just think that he's the same Blair Cobbs that we've seen. So I actually think this was a step down from his last fight, to be honest. And he won the fight. Good for him. It keeps him in the mix, and it gets him in the mix for a possible Vergil Ortiz fight, believe it or not. So let's get into that. Let's get into that. If y'all do one thing, hit that like button. Vergil Ortiz. Vergil Ortiz goes in there with Mike McKinson. And what were we saying last week? Mike McKinson doesn't have any punching power. 2 knockouts and 22 victories. So coming in, we said, this is your pit bull versus bait dog type fight. It's a guy with 100% KO percentage against a guy with an 8% KO percentage, I believe. Something like that. He has 1 knockout every 11 fights. That's never good. Never good. As I mentioned earlier in the show, 4 years ago, he fought a guy with 169 losses in, I believe, 11 draws, something like that, 12 draws, and he didn't knock that guy out. So not much power with him. But when a guy works his way up to this level, when he graduates from the domestic level to the elite level, at least as a big underdog, as the B side, he has other attributes if he has no punching power that are very good. Boxing ability, lateral movement, athleticism. See Paulie Malignaggi. Malignaggi had no punching power, but the guy had one of the best up jabs in the sport. Super athletic, great lateral movement, activity. He can give you other things. And McKinson's that type of guy that could have offered, if Vergil Ortiz did not show up in this fight, would have offered something like Jimmy Kelly did against Munguia, to where Jimmy Kelly was outboxing Munguia in the first 3-4 rounds of that fight. Why we thought that wouldn't happen in this fight is, one, that's how high we are on Vergil Ortiz. Number two, McKinson just didn't have the power to keep a pressure fighter, who, by the way, is a better boxer, much better boxer than given credit for, off of him. Vergil Ortiz is a more skilled fighter than people give him credit for. This guy, when he gets hit when he trades, he doesn't get hit when he comes in. Do film study, watch Vergil Ortiz fight. Dumb fighters, caveman type fighters, pressure fighters who are just pressure fighters get hit when they come in that middle zone. Vergil Ortiz works his way in intelligently and then goes to work. And when he goes to work, obviously, you're going to catch punches while you're working. That's part of the game, though. Vergil Ortiz is trying to get these dudes to fight at a pace where they're uncomfortable, in a real estate where they're uncomfortable. That's what Vergil Ortiz does. He gets on the inside, goes to work. And you saw this in this fight. Intelligent fighter in Vergil Ortiz was not going to be outboxed by a skillful boxer, because he's a skillful boxer himself. And then eventually that stoppage was going to come. And I mentioned it when I was watching Floyd Schofield fight earlier in the fight. The thing that I was impressed with him about was his patience. He did not just jump in there and try to get his opponent out of there and leave himself wide open. Vergil Ortiz, the same thing. He just kept to the game plan, kept to the game plan, kept to the game plan, doing what he does best. And eventually the stoppage came. And it came with body shots. A lost art in the sport, body shots, body punching. And you saw how McKinson reacted to it at the beginning of the 9th round. He never recovered from that body punch. And when Vergil Ortiz caught him with that body punch at the beginning of the 9th round, the following one, it looked like he barely hit him, but that's how bad he caught him in the 8th round. Caught him with the body shot in the 9th round, and it looked like McKinson was paralyzed. It looked like he had a leg injury because he could not walk after getting hit with the shots. I don't know what this is about, the promoter thing. McKinson was the B-side. I don't understand how that makes me sound like a promoter. But McKinson served himself well. Let's circle back to what I said at the beginning. If your fighter is not a KO puncher and has lost all the rounds before the 9th round, and he comes back limping to the round because he caught a huge body shot, he gets up at the count of 8, 9, is not reacting well, is running around the ring to try to survive. He comes back in the 9th round, and you know he does not possess an equalizer to knock out the fighter who has a 100% KO percentage and knows how to finish dudes and has damaged fighters who have fought before your guy fought him. And you've seen that he's damaged fighters. You don't put your fighter back out there to get damaged. You don't. I don't understand. I'm glad he threw out the towel. I'm glad he did, not only because I had the under. I'm glad he threw out the towel early in the 9th round, but he should have never went out for the 9th round to get caught with another body shot in the same spot. Vergil Ortiz has great punch placement. He knew where to follow up. He knew where to catch that shot. And he did. And he stopped him. And we got another stoppage, 19-0, 19 KOs, Vergil Ortiz. And we got our under. And that's what we said coming in, 8.5 rounds. I felt like it should have been priced at 5.5, 6.5. So McKinson actually did better than I expected. Good for McKinson. He showed better than I expected. And I'd like to see McKinson again in the future. I think he offers a good opponent who will offer some resistance against fighters who aren't Vergil Ortiz, right? Some other guys in the top 10 at 147, he can offer them some puzzles to try to solve. Athletic fighter who can box. But that's what we saw here. And good for Vergil Ortiz. Good for Vergil Ortiz. Here's what we have going forward. We've been talking about wanting to unlock this welterweight division. For the past, let's call it 13 years, this has been a locked division. We've had good welterweight fights between good welterweight fighters. We've even had an occasional great fight between great welterweight fighters. But for the most part, we've had a lot of posturing in the welterweight division. For 6 years, Mayweather and Pacquiao were at the top and didn't fight. Finally, they fought well past their prime. Now, from 2018 to 2022, we've had the same two fighters at the top. Haven't fought. And for 4 years, I've been hearing it's because this guy's on this side of the street, that guy's on that side of the street. Now they're both on the same side of the street trying to negotiate. Still nothing. Terrence Crawford hasn't fought since November 2021. We're now in August 2022. Errol Spence Jr. fought 4 months ago. So we're talking about a guy who hasn't fought 9 months, going on 10 months. We have a guy who hasn't fought in 4 months. Still, they haven't been able to hammer out a deal to fight each other, number one and number two. And this is what we still have in this division. Vergil Ortiz was at least respectful after the fight and saying, Terrence Crawford looks busy. I'm going to give those guys their moment, see what happens. But I want to fight often. I want to fight early and often. Vergil Ortiz hasn't been happy that he didn't want to. This is a guy who wants to fight often. Didn't fight since August 2021. That was due to the illness in March. Pushed this fight off. They did it again for August. They wanted the Avanesyan fight. Didn't materialize because Avanesyan didn't want the fight. Vergil Ortiz is a frustrated fighter right now. He's a fighter who wants to be great. He's a fighter who cares about legacy. He's a fighter who knocks guys out. Entertainment value. He gives us everything. He has the potential of unlocking this division. He's the only fighter I see in the mix right now who really, like, he's actively calling for it and saying, I want to fight before the end of the year. I believe that Virgil will knock on that door, Oscar De La Hoya's office, and say, look, I need another fight before 2022 is over. You got to get me back in there November, December. When Vergil Ortiz says this, I believe it. And Vergil Ortiz is out there saying this. I want to fight again before the end of the year. So for me, as a boxing fan who just wants to see Vergil Ortiz fight, this isn't me as a Vergil Ortiz fan. This isn't me as a Golden Boy fan. None of that. This is me as a boxing fan. We have to get this dude's face in front of casual fans on casual fans' TV sets. And in order to do that, you keep this guy active. You keep him fighting every 3-4 months. That's one of the good things they're doing with Munguia, right? Munguia, we don't like his fight selection. We don't like Golden Boy's fight selection for him right now, but at least he's fighting every 3 to 4 months. And that's what they did with Golovkin. Golovkin wasn't getting the fights he wanted to get back in 2012, 13, 14, 15. Guess what he was doing? He was fighting every 3 to 4 months, staying in people's faces, mowing guys down. It didn't matter who they were. He was fighting the best opposition available to him. He wasn't waiting for negotiations. He wasn't sitting back and whining. No matter what you feel about Golovkin, he was mowing guys down and building an organic fan base and staying in people's faces, marketing himself. And that's what they need to do with Vergil Ortiz. Get this guy fighting 3 to 4 times per year. There's no reason, none, zero, zilch, illness, don't care that this guy should be fighting once every 12 months. None. All right, I understand things happen, but you've got to get this guy back in there before the end of the 2022. Get him back in the spring, get him back in the summer, get him back in the fall, get him back in the winter, 3 to 4 times a year. Get Vergil Ortiz fights. Don't sit back and wait for negotiations. Look, we understand, we know at this point, track record, right? Anything with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford is going to take forever. All right? 2 dudes who have been standing at the top for 4 years and haven't fought each other. I don't expect, look, if Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford falls through, I would love to see one of those guys fight Vergil Ortiz. I would love to see Vergil Ortiz get that shot. And that's closer to a 50-50 fight, both of them, than people think. But I'm not going to hold my breath and wait for it. And Vergil Ortiz's team shouldn't wait for it either. In my opinion, they should go forward and work as if Errol and Terrence are going to fight each other and get this dude a fight for November, December. I don't care who it is, Avanesyan, Blair Cobbs, don't care. Get him in front of people. Get him active. Keep him at the top of the WBA, WBO, number 2 in the WBC, IBF. Keep him up there. Keep him active. And eventually one of these guys are going to have to come to Vergil Ortiz, going to have to fight him. They're going to be mandated to. And if they don't, he'll get his shot through the vacant process. And that's what's got to happen here. And by the way, everybody, if he does this, everybody is going to see. It's transparent that these dudes do not want to fight Vergil Ortiz. They don't. They don't want it. Look, another guy in the division, Boots Ennis. He's not getting the fights. Nobody wants to fight him. Everybody agrees with that. But here's the problem. You can't fight. It's beyond me. We're in month eight of 2022, and Boots Ennis has fought once. Once. Can't happen. It cannot happen. Build your brand. Build an organic fan base. You can't do that being a part-time fighter. You can't build a full-time fan base being a part-time fighter. If the cards are already stacked against you because people don't want to fight you, maybe you're not as marketable as another guy, you got to stay active. Mow guys down. Fight Joe Blow, number 67 in the rankings. Fight John Blow, 53 in the rankings. Whoever it is, man, just stay in people's faces every 3 months. Boots Ennis should be mowing guys down quarterly. Just mowing guys down on Showtime undercards until somebody has to come see the dude, because he's built up an organic fan base from mowing dudes down quarterly, destroying dudes, putting on fun fights, and then dudes will have to come see him. And if they don't, then you just call them duckers. The whole world will see it. It will be transparent. And that's what they need to do with Vergil Ortiz and Boots Ennis. Vergil Ortiz, there's no reason he shouldn't be fighting again before the end of the year. I don't care who it is. We can talk about who it is. I'd love to see the Errol Spence fight. The Battle of Dallas. The Battle of Fort Worth, Grand Prairie. Do it. Put it in Jerry's world. Do it. I'm all for it. I'll gladly drive over there. Pay the hotel rooms. Good. Buy a good seat. I'll be there. Do it. Would love to see it. Would love to see him in there with Bud. You can do it in Dallas. You can do it in Omaha. Wherever. Do it. I'll be there. We can talk about who he wants to fight, but the bigger subject to me, the bigger issue to me is activity. I talk about it on this channel constantly. Activity. Fight. Vergil Ortiz he's a gym, man. He's a boxing gym. You don't want to hide it. You don't want to have people having to go search for people. Why should people have to go search for Vergil Ortiz? He shouldn't be a hidden gem. He should be out in the open. This dude is 19-0 with 19 KOs. He's marketable. He's a good kid from Dallas, Texas. He's got a built-in fan base. You can tell, like, he appreciates the history of the sport. He understands legacy. He wants to go for it. He wants to fight 3, 4, 5 times a year. He says it. He says he's in the gym all the time. He's a gym rat. Why is this dude not getting fight dates? For the love of God. For me, it's less about the quality and more about the quantity. If Virgil's doing what he's supposed to be doing at 147, which he will, the fights are going to come to him. You just have to keep this dude in people's faces. Terrence Crawford's 36. Errol Spence is what, 32, 33? He seems to be an older 32, 33. Virgil is soon to be the face of this division. I don't know how long he make 147, possibly 154 in the future. But this division right now, man, it's screaming like there's a vacuum for a dude who is just going to fight. And Vergil Ortiz fights. It has a vacuum for a dude who understands legacy. Virgil understands legacy. But it needs activity. Errol Spence Jr. fought once this year. He's number 1. Terrence Crawford has fought 0 times this year. He's number 2. Yordenis Ugas has fought once this year. He's number 3. Vergil Ortiz has fought once this year. He's number 4. Keith Thurman, they say number 5. I don't understand that, but he's fought once. I mean, these guys have either fought 0 times or once. None of them have a second fight scheduled yet. So you're talking about the top 6 guys in the division. We're on month 8. And none of them have a second fight scheduled yet. This is why it's a dumpster juice division. And I understand it's a different sport than it was a generation ago, and definitely than the generation before that. We talked about last week how Oscar De La Hoya loses to Felix Trinidad, and 5 months later he fights against Coley. And then less than 4 months after that, he fights Shane Mosley. These dudes were active, and they were actively building an organic fan base. Shane Mosley, Tito Trinidad beats Oscar De La Hoya, and he doesn't go on a victory tour for a year. 6 months later, he moves up to 154 and beats undefeated David Reed. Stops him, damages him. Meldrick Taylor fighting Chavez 5 years in. Jermaine Taylor fighting Bernard Hopkins 4 years in. These dudes weren't marinating their careers. These dudes weren't saying, you know what, I'm not ready yet. I need a couple more years. I need another fight or two. And their fan bases sure as hell weren't saying that. You got to keep dudes active. Vergil Ortiz, more than quality, we need quantity right now. Golden Boy has to get this dude more active than he's been. They have to get this should be mission number one. Mission number one for Golden Boy. Mission number one for Golden Boy is get Vergil Ortiz another fight before the end of the year. I don't care who it's against. Don't care who it's against. You have to keep this dude in people's faces. You have to. He's a gem. This dude, there's no reason he shouldn't be a star in the United States of America. No reason. People love blood, knockouts. And this dude gives us that. He's a good kid, young, 100% KO percentage. And oh, by the way, he can box. From Dallas, Texas. Nice built-in fan base. Fighting once every 12 months. Can't happen. Can't happen. These promoters, man, God, these promoters, managers, they got to get these dudes more active. Virgil and Boots have to fight again before the end of the year. Doesn't matter who against. Look, Virgil, there's no reason Virgil and Boots shouldn't be fighting next. No reason not to. I'm going to be told, not realistic. I know it's not going to happen next. That's what I'm going to be told. There's no reason if Errol and Terrence should have had this wrapped up by now. They should have had this wrapped up 4 years ago. But if a deal doesn't happen, make Errol versus Virgil, make Bud versus Virgil before the end of the year. It can happen. But if those fights aren't going to happen, just get them in there with Blair Cobbs or whoever, Evanescence, whoever, Roca, doesn't matter to me. Just get this dude back in the ring. Keep him active. And oh, by the way, if it is Errol versus Virgil, if it is Bud versus Virgil, I'm telling you, that's more 50-50 fights than you think. Virgil versus Ben would be violence. And by the way, it's an all DAZN crew right there. I think Virgil is going to face Blair Hobbs next. Both in-house fighters, an exciting fight. I got Virgil round 5 TKO. I think he would get. I actually think he'd get Blair out of there earlier than that, to be honest. But that would be fun. I read that in Keith Thurman's voice. This is it. RM's right. It's the welterweight division. That's right. Let's see what else we got. De La Hoya fought the occasional Forbes to stay busy, as in Manny Pacquiao fought and David Diaz, Algieri for activity between super fights. That's what I'm saying. Like, not everyone has to be a banger. But if Virgil's not getting the fights that everybody wants, that he deserves, that he wants, that he's been calling for, Virgil has been calling from the mountaintops, I want the big fights now. And he's one of those dudes you believe because of track record. You believe it. You know when he says it, he means it. He's a dude who can unlock this division because I know in my heart of hearts, I have pretty good instincts. I've been around. Virgil's a dude, once he gets to the top, he's going to act like the champion that boxing deserves. I do believe that. So I hope he gets there. But until then, you just have to keep the dude active. Do the work on the front end, keep him active, and build up that fan base. Continue to build up that fan base organically. Do the organic work early on. And everything else is going to fall. As long as you keep the fighter active, man, everything eventually is going to fall into place. The shots are going to come, whether it takes longer than you think or not, whether it's 6 months from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Eventually, they will come if you keep the fighter active. If the fighter is inactive, if the fighter is fighting sporadically, it gives the other opponents more of a reason to stay away from him. He's not building his fan base. Oh, he's not that active anyway. Who cares? But if a dude is staying out there, putting in the work, outworking the opposition, outworking his peers in the division, the peers have to turn to him at some point. They have to face him. They have to see him at some point. Boxing history dictates that. It has to happen. Quantity. Let's focus less on quality with Virgil right now, because it all comes down to, look, we know Virgil wants the quality fights. We know that. We know Virgil will fight Bud in Bud's backyard. We know Virgil will fight Errol in Errol's backyard. We know it. All right. We know he wants those fights now. It's all up to Errol and Bud what happens. All the dominoes are going to fall after that. Everybody is waiting to see what's happening with the Errol and Bud negotiations. Nobody knows what's going on in that boardroom, despite what everybody's telling you. Everybody's going to act like they have their sources. Nobody has sources. Nobody knows what's going on in that boardroom. But until we get finality with these negotiations, whether they fight each other or whether they don't, that keeps everything else in gridlock. And that's what I'm talking about, a locked division. This is a locked division because I'm being told that the top two guys haven't been able to fight each other for 4 years due to politics. And then you have guys underneath that at the same point in their careers who I'm being told can't fight each other because they're at the same point in their career. They're all young lions coming up. Frustrating. And oh, by the way, another fight I'd love to see is Vergil Ortiz versus Stanionis. Whew. Woo! You give me that fight next. Oh, that's a hell of a fight. And I would definitely favor Vergil Ortiz in that fight, but Stanionis is a beast. But this is the last thought I'll keep you with because I got to get out of here. But Vergil Ortiz, we got to focus right now on quantity over quality. Get him in the ring every 4 months at the latest. That should be your goal if you're Golden Boy. 4 months. 4 months. We can't wait around for other people to negotiate. We can't wait for dominoes to fall. 4 months is our deadline. We keep him in. We have to get him in there every 4 months. We have to keep building this guy's fan base organically, and then everything else will fall into place. Quantity over quality. Quantity over quality with Vergil Ortiz. And that's all I got, man. Appreciate y'all. I'll be on with D-Style in about an hour. All right. And I'll be back here tomorrow evening around the same time, about 6 p.m. Central. And I'll put that reminder up there for y'all in the morning. Appreciate y'all coming through. God bless.